talk about my favorite emotional intelligence questions. Question number one: If you had a magic wand, if you had a magic wand, shout out to Wicked in theaters everywhere soon. If you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? If you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? This actually came from my first therapist. I want to respect the privacy, so I'm not going to mention their name, but it was a wonderful person. They were African American, just like I am, and they were a guy. So as a male African American therapist, actually reminded me of my father's because I have a stepfather as well as a biological father. I mention that because it's really key as far as it doesn't mean that your therapist, whoever you connect with, has to look exactly like you or be of your culture, but it certainly does help. And there's an amazingly dearth, I think that's the word, lack of lack of African American therapists, particularly African American male therapists. So I lucked the hell out. So very thankful for him. Shout out to you. I hope you're doing wonderful wherever you are. And I was having a hard time. He said, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? This question is powerful. Before I get into why this question matters so much, I've got to shout out Dr. Charmaine Jackman with one of my favorite t-shirts. Yes, I wear it to family reunions. Get you a therapist. You can get the t-shirt. It's available. I think it's still available now. I got it earlier this year. The link is right there. Just go to innopsych.com. The link is right there. Check it out. It's not even a referral or nothing. I just rock with Dr. Jackman's work and particularly with this shirt. So thank you, Dr. Jackman. I appreciate that. Why it matters so much as far as with this question: if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? It matters for two big reasons. Number one, it's able to help you uncover your desires. Because sometimes, if we, when I was in actually, it wasn't grad school, when I was in undergrad, and one of my favorite teachers talked about there being overactive editors and underactive editors. Underactive editors are like sumo wrestlers, they move really slow. And so when you do a piece of writing or you have something that you're going to say, then it's like your brain takes a while to process it. And your stuff might come out kind of weird. And it's like, oh, well, I should have said it a different way. You ever have that feeling? That's having a slow editor, like a sumo wrestler. Shout out to Japan. You're moving really slow. Having an overactive editor is like having a monkey. That means that as soon as a thought comes into your head, you're over editing it. I have a little bit of both. My background is journalism, so I've tangled with both of these editors in my mind. We often do the same thing with our desires. Before before we even get it to our conscious, it's like, wow, I really would like to be loved for who I am. Let's say a simple thing like that. We can immediately jump in with the voice of our parent or guardian who was super critical, the voice of the public who didn't necessarily have faith in the work that we were doing, and the people around us who misunderstood us, and be like, Damon, no one's gonna love you for who you are. Don't even don't even think about that. And so before you know it, poof, it's gone. The magic wand question kind of plays with that because it says, no, actually, you can let's go into this fantasy world, which isn't really a fantasy world, and say, what exactly would you do or have? And then once that question is answered, then you can go deeper. I remember talking to a client years ago, actually, it was a potential client to someone I knew, and they're talking about they had a particular problem. The problem is that they needed money. What do you need money for? Why do you need money to get this thing done? Well, why do you need to get this thing done to go forward with your business? Oh, because da da da. And going layers down, kind of like the one of the coaching rules where you ask why 3 to 5 times, right? And come to find out, they needed, and from an ego standpoint, from a security standpoint, they needed to feel legitimate. So to feel legitimate, they had to pay someone X amount of dollars to do this to their product or their service. But actually it wasn't necessary because that was actually insecurity they had. Once you get into the magic wand land, then suddenly it starts to peel away those layers. And it's like, oh, I just want to be happy. Well, what does it require for you to be happy? Well, it requires a lot of money. Well, why does it require a lot of money? Well, because then I can do things for my family. So you don't deserve happiness because you can't do anything for your family that would make them feel happy? Isn't that their isn't that their duty to make themselves happy just like you have to make yourself happy? Oh, see that quickly. That quickly, it just cuts to the chase. We're really talking about emotional intelligence, not just from a therapy standpoint, as far as people being a therapist. I am not a therapist, just to be clear. I've seen plenty, not only from a therapist standpoint, but also from and a coach standpoint, which I can talk about, but also from the standpoint of healing yourself. You don't need another person to ask these questions. You can ask yourself that question right now. And then you go as deep as you want to go, as deep as you can go. If it's too much for you, if you feel overwhelmed, then find some support. Do that. But these are things that we can actually do on our own too. If we're feeling stuck in our business, we're feeling stuck in our family or personal situation, whatever it is, particularly as solopreneurs, as non-traditional entrepreneurs, as side hustlers. Excuse me. Once we get into that space, again, I'm emphasizing the solopreneurship. It's just, this is what you see right now. This is how I work. I work right here at this desk. You know, I don't have a board of directors. At the moment, I don't have a co-founder. Like I'm just kind of on my own. And so these questions hopefully will help you get to those deeper levels so you can like raise up your emotional intelligence. One of the worst things we can do is not ask these tough questions, and then we end up operating on autopilot. I've talked about this in the complete Bring Your Worth collection, particularly in the first, very very first book, The Bite-Sized Entrepreneur, where so many of us are on autopilot because we're being driven by things and we don't recognize what we're being driven by. So the first layer to the question, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? It actually allows us to understand our true needs and what we're actually looking for. The second part of it is it helps us face that these things may never happen. You may never get the acceptance from your family. Your product may never be a bestseller or be featured at one of the major big box stores. There's no guarantee of that. My first startup, it was very much a small thing, even though I pushed it really hard, but it helped me get on the stage at TED. My second startup, co-founded it with my two co-founders. Hope you are doing wonderful. And it became twice in a row in 2014. It twice became the number one app in the world. I put the same amount of effort into both of them. Probably more effort into the first one, to be honest. You just kind of roll the dice. You don't know. And so there's certain things that could fulfill your heart's desire that may never happen. The magic wand thing basically says, all right, it might never happen. Now you can face it because you actually know what those desires are. Such a great question. Actually, very much informed my early adulthood. So thank you so much to my first therapist. I appreciate you. And of course, the shirt is available from Dr. Jackman. You can find all the links I'm talking about below. If you want to go deeper into these big questions, one of my favorite books of the year, you can tell it's been through some stuff. My kids have already spilled water on it like 3 times. Look at this thing. Ooh, you can tell it's my summer read. Man, shout out to Dr. Kristen Neff. Shout out to you. One of my favorite books of the year. Really simple title, Self Compassion. It doesn't get any simpler than that. For my generation and for right now, I'd say right before the current era, we talked a lot about self love and you need to love yourself, give some self love, da 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 da. And it's like, no, actually, we need self compassion. I mean, we love ourselves to a certain extent, but self compassion is when you screw up. Self compassion is when you give your best. And to quote James Ingram, you give your best and you guess your best wasn't good enough. You don't make it. I've Again, I've done 27 books, two startups, for the TED Talk-ish things, including some TEDx's. Yeah, I hear you on failure. Kind of how it works. But if we don't let ourselves go outside, we're not gonna play to that next level. And oftentimes, back to the subconscious and unconscious thing, we actually stop ourselves before we start because we're afraid of failing. Afraid of looking silly or stupid. This actually helped a lot with all the transition I've had this year. It helped so much as far as understanding where I was coming from. And it plays a lot into that big question. You have to figure out what you need. What are the ways that you can give yourself what you need, no matter what's going on in the outside world, particularly right now? Ooh, we definitely need some love for sure. Shout out to self compassion. Appreciate your work, Dr. Neff. One of my biggest guides, how to know yourself more, a beginner's guide. I get into the Johari window that helps you understand what you know and what other people know about yourself. I get into some of the work of the next person I'm going to talk about, Dr. Brene Brown. I get into understanding your shadow, like all kinds of stuff in there. It's about 3.5 hours. Works well with audio. I think two of the episodes in it are live, and the rest of them are recorded. If you're taking a long walk, I know we have the holiday season happening here in the United States, beginning with Thanksgiving in a couple weeks. Take it, download it, the audio, take it on the plane with you, whatever. Do your thing. This is really good as far as if you want to do the work, you want to have almost like a master class, long form energy with it. It's a popular episode as well. I hope you guys get a lot out of it. So, if you had a magic wand, what would you do or have? What will work for you right now? Feel free to jump into the comments if you have something on your mind and there's some type of thing that you would like to make happen. And yeah, it might be worth unpacking why exactly you want it to happen. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown, and here to help you as a side hustler, solopreneur, otherwise a not traditional entrepreneur. I'm here every Wednesday at what time? 11 p.m. Just went out my brain. Been doing it for years. Went out my brain. 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free, whether you're on Amazon, LinkedIn, or more importantly, here on the show. If you subscribe to the show and you put on the notifications, it allows me to go ahead and make sure the show continues on. And I know that you guys are rocking with me and you're supporting the show. Today, we're talking about our favorite, or my favorite, emotional intelligence questions. If you had a magic wand, what would you do or have?